Welcome everybody to Red's Ramblings. I have John and Matthew here from over in the UK in Liverpool. Go ahead, both of you, give a quick bio on who you are and what you do.
So I'm John. I've just finished studying at the University of Liverpool. I'm really interested in history, which I've just done my degree on. I also make short films with Matt in my spare time. I've also started my own podcast, which I've been running for a couple of months as well. I'm really interested in arts and the culture and just things like that, really.
I'm Matthew. I'm a little bit younger than John. I've just finished college. I'm going to be starting university in September. I direct a lot of the films that I make with John, along with our friend Connor, and I act sometimes, and I'm into my music.
Okay, all right, cool. One of the things that when I put the post that John that you responded to that I've always enjoyed learning, seems like you as well, about other cultures and whatnot. And so far, you guys are probably gonna be the easiest I can talk to because the language is so similar, obviously. Because just 30 minutes ago, I got done with talking with a lady from Serbia. And I don't know if you know anything about their language. It's insane. And I couldn't understand. I tried to read stuff and I was butchering it. But besides accents and certain phrases that I know Liverpool has compared to other parts of the UK, I should be able to read things pretty properly. I'm going to hope. So first thing I wanted to do, man, because y'all obviously big into film, it seems like, right?
Yes, we both are.
All right, what got you into that?
I think just because it's kind of, for me, a blend of all different types of mediums. So you've got people who are really interested in acting, people who are really interested in photography and cinematography, then people who are interested in music and design and things as well. It's kind of like, whereas of course it's brilliant that artists and paintings are just one person or books like that, I think film is a massive coalition of loads of different types of talents, and I think that's really something beautiful that we don't really see in many art forms.
I think there's something that film can give you that other art forms don't. So you get like inherently suggestive forms like music and painting, but with something like film, you're thrown into this scenario and it's literally captured as you would be watching that, and you can't get that from theatre or any similar medium.
Yeah, that's very true. Is there something currently that you guys are working on?
We've written a script for a film called Nick and Live Together. John is in that. And that is going to be starting filming over the summer.
What's that about, if you don't mind?
It's about an ex-couple. So it's like a romance movie almost, but they're not together anymore. And it's kind of like discovering, covering their happy memories together, but then they also argue a lot. So it's kind of like the clash, very bittersweet. All
right. Oh, cool. Hopefully all that works out for you guys. One of the things in my I've only had about 30 minutes looking at stuff for Liverpool that I was looking at is, again, like how we have in the States, we have different accents depending on where you go, north, south, east, west, all that kind of stuff. Their accents obviously everywhere, but I'm assuming the native Liverpool accent is, I might be wrong here, Scouse,
yeah.
Scouse, okay. And I'm assuming that's the accent you guys have right now.
Well, I think because we're kind of, we grew up on the outskirts. We're born in Liverpool and our family's from Liverpool. Mm-hmm. We don't have like the same strong accent that a lot of them have. The Scouse accent, do you want to do an impression?
All right there, mate. All right, la. Like,
that's kind of, it's like a very strong accent that a lot of people who come to study here or on holiday here, they don't really, a lot of them can't pick it up very well, but me and Matt have got, like the Beatles had more like softer versions of the Scouse accent, so like every now and then you'll hear like a word that we say that will sound Scouse, but then like others aren't as on as strong.
Yeah, basically that.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned the Beatles, and that was one of the things I was definitely, obviously, I mean, you can't speak to somebody from Liverpool and not bring up the Beatles. I mean, that's probably easily one of, if not the most famous thing Liverpool's known for. It's at least here on the American side for sure, is y'all are the birthplace of the Beatles. And I was actually looking into other stuff, trying to find like other bands or groups, musicians that I'm aware of that are also from Liverpool. I couldn't really find a lot. But what I did find though is even though a lot of them I've never heard of besides the Beatles, obviously, but Liverpool is still the pop capital of the world, apparently. You guys have had more artists and musicians, bands to have #1 hits than any other city or town in the entire world. Is that something you guys already knew about?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is the Beatles, but then a lot of it comes from obviously like the solo stuff that they produce, and then a lot of bands in the 60s who didn't quite make it as big as the Beatles. A lot of them were really popular in the UK and in Liverpool then, and Matthew's more into like the modern like Liverpool bands.
Yeah. I can't name that many, to be honest. There's a band, one of my favorite bands is called the Wombats. I don't know how big they are.
Yeah, I've never heard of them, but I did see them mentioned quite often. Yes.
Yeah, they're very popular in the UK. It's kind of like I like kind of that they're going strong now, because in the way that like obviously people talk about Liverpool's music scene as being a past thing, but it's still going on. There's still a lot of great bands.
And it's very rare that like when a massive artist or band comes to the UK to perform, they'll perform London and then probably somewhere in Scotland, and then they'll do Manchester, but they don't usually do Liverpool. So that's something that is quite annoying, because like look at all the stuff that we've got in the city about the Beatles and like all the other bands that we've produced as well. So
I can agree to that. One of the other things I was looking at that I love to talk about anytime I'm talking to somebody from another country is the food, like the local foods around there. And so I was looking at toad in the hole. It looks delicious to me.
It is. It's like, have you guys heard of Yorkshire pudding?
I've heard of it.
So it's like pancake batter, but it's thicker and it's not sweet.
Mm-hmm.
And we have that with like a roast dinner, so like roast beef, carrots and gravy and potatoes. But a toad in the hole is this Yorkshire pudding with sausages in it and then gravy. So it's not very healthy, but it's very lovely and heartwarming. After the end of a long day, it's really lovely.
Yeah, it doesn't look healthy, but it looks delicious. I'll say that's for sure.
I mean, you can say that about all British foods. We've got this reputation abroad of not having like the best food cuisine or anything like that, but when you look into like it's not really healthy food and it's not really like exotic or anything, but it's like as Matt said, it's just sometimes like really comforting.
And another one, bubble and squeak.
Yes.
I've never actually tried bubble and squeak, but what it is it's leftovers from the night before, usually from a roast dinner or if you've had like a big meal, and then I think they mash it all up together and then fry it. I've never tried it, so I don't know what it's like, but it's kind of like a way.
Good. I mean, if you fry anything, that's me right there.
It's the sort of thing that my mum would say that her mum used to make, so it seems to be like a less common thing now, but I would like to try it.
One other thing, because from here in America, y'all, the names of your dishes are very odd compared like how we would name our dishes, right? Wet Nelly.
I don't know what that is.
I've not heard of that. No, I feel like I don't belong here now. Like I should be. I'm not the expert. No, but I've not heard of it. Do you know what it is? Can you tell me about British foods?
So this website, it says a wet Nelly is delicious dessert and I might be saying this wrong. Liverpudlian is
Liverpudlian.
Okay. Was originally created as a way to use up stale cakes or bread. The scraps were softened with water and then mixed with dried fruit, spices, sugar, and eggs. It is usually served with custard.
I think it's something that our grandparents would be very familiar with, but we're not exactly. Like it seems like a sort of post-war kind of like you've got to recycle everything and reuse everything. But it does sound interesting.
I feel like that's what a lot of our food came from. It came from traditions and like the society. So a lot of the things we eat obviously like developed during the war, and it was like you'll get what you're given. You just have to put it all together.
Yeah. One last one before we get off food. Everton mints.
Yeah, do you want to describe it, or shall I? Do you want to?
Yeah. Do they come from the name of the football team, or is it the other way around?
I think it comes. So we have two clubs in Liverpool. Obviously, Liverpool FC and Everton. We're both Everton fans, but there's this like story about in the football club in the old days. There was this like sweet shop around the corner, and they would sell these sweets called Everton mints. And it's what it is. It's kind of like it's like soft mint on the outside, then in the inside it's toffee. So Everton Football Club have the nickname the Toffees. So yeah, you don't see them very often, but like every now and then, like they'll come up in like a shop or something. But yeah, they throw them. They used to throw them out at the start of the football games. I'm not sure whether they still. This is soccer for US listeners.
Yeah, they're nice. That's all I can say.
All right. So you guys are from the UK. Are there any other? I don't know if you call them, like here we call them states. Like I'm from South Carolina, so I visited the next state, Georgia. I don't know what exactly if it's called a region, another country. Is there any other places around the UK that you've been to?
Well, the UK is made up of
counties, you would say, instead of states.
But it is 4 different countries within the UK. So you've got England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales. So we've been to Wales quite a lot, and we've been to Ireland. We've not been to Scotland. Also, like surrounding the UK, Ireland's really easy to get to. A lot of British people go to Ireland, and Spain and France and Europe are really popular as well.
Yeah, and so our equivalent of states would be counties. So the one that Liverpool's in is Merseyside, and then you've got other places around the UK. It's just kind of like there'll be county maps, and it's all just divided into separate areas.
Yeah. Okay. And what are some of the things that maybe you can mention that about Liverpool that maybe like someone like me who just did like a quick 30-minute research, like if I was to visit Liverpool, I probably wouldn't find out. But some interesting facts that really only the locals know about.
So I think one of the main things is not only the accent, but the sense of humor. Like wherever you go, there'll be people from Liverpool who are just like cracking jokes, even to strangers, like, but it's always in like good spirit. It's always like fun and like funny. It's never like mean or anything. And yeah, I think a lot of people from around the UK have said that Scouse people, which is people from Liverpool, are the most friendly in the UK. They're the people who they might just like say hi to someone on the street that they don't know, or they'll start a conversation out of nowhere. Where I don't know if you've ever been to London, but on the tubes in London, everyone's very kind of like everyone stays in like by themselves, and they don't really branch out and talk to people. It's very kind of quiet, and like you just stick with your own people. And then in Liverpool, you get people making friends just by like talking at a coffee shop or a bar or something like that. And I think that's really a great thing about Liverpool. Do you have anything else to add?
I just elaborate on that. It's just the atmosphere. I want to try and describe it, but it's kind of like when you're there, it's not, because it's not a particularly affluent city. So it's not really, it doesn't look nice. If you Google photos of Liverpool, it does not look very nice at all. But it's just kind of the atmosphere. And I feel like almost just because it's not like the prettiest city, I just feel like there's some beauty in that. Which sounds really pretentious.
No, I understand.
It's got its own local atmosphere. And it feels authentic. That's how I describe it. It's very authentic.
I agree. One of the things you said, and I want to make sure people understand, when you said tubes, that's trains, right? I'm assuming.
Oh yeah, so that's a thing in London. So in Liverpool, we wouldn't call the train the tube. We just call it the train. But in London, because they're very narrow and they're very fast, and there's so many people like crammed on them, they've got a kind of different reputation than the ones in the rest of the UK. So yeah, that's strictly London, I'd say.
Yeah, and one of the things you mentioned that I actually kind of did, I don't have it pulled up, but I did find something when you mentioned the humor. One of the things that I did read is that it's, like you said, it's not meant out of ill will, but it's sometimes a pretty dark humor. at times, but it's all in good fun. It's all in good fun.
Yeah, can you think of any examples, Matt?
So yeah, I think it's British people in general, but specifically Liverpool people were the first to just make fun out of anything. So even if we know it's bad. So for example, when so like the coronavirus lockdown, we were told that we could go for one daily piece of exercise, and instead of being like, oh, I'm scared to go out, imagine this situation. Everyone was making fun of like the police coming up to you going, this better be your first walk of the day, mate. Like, it's not, everything's just a joke, but we don't laugh at it. Like, we'll just try and make the lightest of it.
And I can give you an example of like a darker joke. I'm trying to remember it properly, but I think it was someone at one of the Everton soccer games, and they said, so there's an empty seat at this really big Everton game, and then someone comes up and says, oh no, who's missed the game, who you're supposed to be with? And the man says, oh, it was my wife's seat, she'd passed away recently. And then the guy says, oh, couldn't someone else have gone with you? And then he says, no, they're all at the funeral. So it's just like that kind of...
That's good, yeah.
So it's like keeping like positive through really like depressing and hard times, because like Matt said, in Britain there's this very much kind of keep calm and carry on culture. Even though Liverpool's such a deprived city, there's still this really great sense of community and identity that really keeps a lot of people going through.
Yeah, sometimes like you said, if you got to find the humor in things and not take life so serious, for sure. Like, I'm all about the dark humor stuff. I'm like, whatever the joke is, like, he didn't mean it or she didn't mean it. It's just either to make the other person laugh or to make themselves laugh, and that's all it is, man.
I think New York has a really similar sense of humor. Definitely, it's because Liverpool's very similar to New York in terms of, because it's right next to Ireland almost, and then it's kind of like a lot of Irish immigrants came over to Liverpool, and a lot of Irish immigrants went to New York, and from all over Europe, immigrants came to Liverpool and New York as well. So this kind of like melting pot culture. So you've got everywhere in Liverpool, you'll hear different accents, and you'll see people of different races and cultures and religions, and it's but everyone feels like a part. Everyone feels integrated in the city. Whereas if you go to somewhere like London, you'll see all the different like restaurants and cafes are all in different areas. So you'll have different areas for different races, but like in Liverpool, everything's all together. And I think, have you noticed that?
Yeah, definitely. Other cities, it's very tribalist. People are there because they're there. They're not part of it. They don't want to explore the community. But I guess here it's very open.
Well, that's obviously cool, because we definitely, I think, worldwide need a lot more of that, for sure. I mean, I don't know if y'all pay attention to anything that's going on in my neck of the woods across the river, but there's a lot of shit going on over here right now. But one of the things I also wanted to bring up that I've always enjoyed, and you guys have it a lot, John, I think I spoke with you a little bit about it before we got onto this, is the urban legends. And UK being so, centuries and centuries old, if not, it's been around forever, there's got to be a ton of legends going around. And I looked up some once you told me about Liverpool, specifically that are mentioned for Liverpool. And I want to get your guys' opinion on these and tell a little bit about Mackenzie's tomb.
Is this, could you just like refresh my memory on this one? Because I've heard of it, but I'm not sure on the...
Okay, it says Mackenzie's tomb is apparently on Rodney Street. He was an avid gambler. He made a deal with the devil that would exchange his soul for lifelong luck on the gambling tables. And his tomb is, I had a picture, it's shaped like a pyramid.
I think I've heard of it. It's not really something that goes around, I think, as much as it would have done in like maybe the 50s and 60s, but there's still, you do get a lot of stories like that, and I think a lot of the time it's to frighten children rather than having any substance to it. And like,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, it says that he was entombed above ground in a pyramid. He was sat upright with a winning hand of cards per his instructions, and his aim was to ensure his body was never committed to earth to prevent the devil from taking back his soul. That's pretty neat.
It does definitely ring a bell. I think it was a priest or something that might have told me it.
One other one I got, Bold Street Time Slip.
I don't know this one.
No, I'm not sure on this one.
Oh man, it says apparently wherever Bold Street is, there have been over 100 reports of time slips since the 1970s, and it comes from apparently seemingly sane individuals who believe they traveled back in time when walking down Bold Street or the surrounding streets.
It's probably my favorite street in Liverpool, to be honest. You do get like a really broad mix of people there. You get people who are begging, and then you get like these really lovely restaurants of all different cultures and cuisines, and you get like these like indie fashion shops as well. I've not heard of the urban legend though. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know either. One other thing I got, Ford Mushroom.
What's this one? Because there's a big Liverpool one that we can talk about in a sec that we'll know more about.
Well, it does say it's on the outskirts of Liverpool, just outside the Jaguar Car and Body Assembly Plant in Halewood, if I'm pronouncing that right.
Yeah.
And apparently it's about aliens and UFO sightings that are apparently, because it's shaped like a mushroom, like cylindrical and whatnot. So apparently a lot of UFO reports have happened out there with glowing lights and all that stuff going back to the 1960s, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I've heard, because that's very near to the airport, so there would be a lot of lights and things like that as well.
Yeah, true.
Do you want Matthew to talk about
one that we'll bring to the table? Okay. So there is
it's a very hard one to kind of describe.
It's a hard one to describe. You're talking about Purple Aki, right? Okay. So Purple Aki is an urban legend in the Liverpool area, and it's so exclusive to Liverpool that, because I went to college in a place called Wigan, so they didn't know Purple Aki is, even if it's a 20-minute drive away. Like, it's very embodied in the city, and he's a criminal who has been, I actually can't name any specific crimes, but he would like go up to men and like ask to feel their muscles, and it's just a really strange thing. Like, he would like feel their muscles, and I think it's just become like there were news stories that like people would make fun of, like, how's that a crime? No, not how's that a crime, like, how's that?
It's like the most bizarre crime, and I think in the 80s he was a name that went around schools in the 80s, kind of like the bogeyman.
Yeah.
And then a little time later he went to court, and then people realized, oh, he's a real person, because a lot of people didn't believe. Everyone thought that it was just a made-up story, but no, he's a real person. And I think he's been banned from a lot of the surrounding areas just because of these really bizarre incidents where he'd go up to people and ask to squeeze their muscles.
That is definitely odd, for sure.
It's a very Liverpool specific one. And then there's another Liverpool one that we can talk about that's so there's a rumor going around that Paul McCartney was replaced by an imposter. You aware of this one?
Yes.
I think it was people say that he was killed in a car crash in the 60s, I think 67, something like that, and they replaced him with an identical looking and sounding guy from Liverpool as well. And there's so much that people have found like so many pieces of evidence which aren't really evidence, but they're kind of jokes. So they think in some Beatles songs, if you play it backwards, it says Paul is dead, or the fact that Paul has no shoes on the Abbey Road cover, it kind of means that he's dead for some reason. I don't know, but that's another quite a popular one, I think, worldwide.
Yeah, I've heard of it before. I never looked much into it, but I think there's also, with Paul, there's also another celebrity, Avril Lavigne, apparently. I don't know if you guys know who she was. She was famous back in like the early late 90s. And she apparently, she was killed off at some point and replaced by a doppelganger, twin, whatever you want to call it, supposedly as well. So yeah, I think people just find weird shit and be like, oh, it must be this, and he's dead. I don't know. I don't know how people come up with that kind of stuff. That's a stretch for sure. One of the things I also found, Super Llama Bananas.
Oh, I don't know. I'm trying to think of the context of it, because I was very young when this was becoming a thing. We had,
I think what it was, And I can't remember what year it was put up, but
2008.
2008, because that year Liverpool was the capital of culture.
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't the year that the original.
Was it not?
No,
Okay.
but I think sometime in either the 90s or the noughties, there was this massive statue put up in Liverpool of, it's kind of like half lamb, half banana.
Yeah.
And it's the most random thing ever. And then in 2008, artists decided, because Liverpool was the capital of culture for Europe for that year, they decided that it'd be a good idea to make lots of like smaller versions of it and like put them all around the city and then put them in different designs. So there's some designs that are covered in like the Beatles, some of them are like football, some of them are like other things to do with the city. And then people could go around and take photos of them. So it's just a really strange thing. And I think it's the sort of thing that you could only find in Liverpool or New York, one of these like melting pot culture.
And then the urban legend associated with that is that it's alive. I think there was a video of it just running around its cage.
Yeah.
Clearly not real, but apparently it's alive.
That's pretty unique. Yeah, because I'm assuming the big statue of it. Yeah, I had to mention it because that's some weird shit right there for sure. You mentioned, I think you said 2008, Liverpool was the culture capital. Is that like something that they do? Like every year they name something like a town like that?
Yeah, it's a European thing. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but like every year there's a different European city that has kind of like loads of big events and people go and attend these really big, like there's a lot of outdoor concerts and like street performances and shows and a lot of things celebrating the city and like its significance that it's had on culture in the city and like worldwide as well. So I think 2008 was Liverpool, so we had like Paul McCartney performed, and can you remember any of was the street performers that year?
Yes.
The Giant.
Yes.
Yeah, Jonathan Hicks were the Giants.
So they would get a part of those celebrations where they got this company from France to like bring along these massive puppets, and when I say giant, I mean like the size of a building. And all these men like jumping up and down, controlling the ropes, moving it around, and like you look at the videos of it from a distance and it's like this giant puppet controlled by people just pulling all these ropes, jumping all about it. I just thought that was so strange. And then that's not something you really see.
No,
It was really good though.
It was very good.
One of the other things I didn't know is obviously London is famous for having Big Ben, but apparently in Liverpool you guys have a clock bigger. I'm assuming Liver Building that I don't think many people, definitely outside of Liverpool or the UK, would have known, because I've always thought that Big Ben was named Big Ben because the biggest clock, but you guys have a bigger one.
Yeah, so Big Ben is technically the bell. Is that right, Matt? Yeah, so Big Ben's technically the bell, and then the clock face on it's Victoria Tower, isn't it? Or is it Elizabeth? I think it might be Elizabeth Tower.
Elizabeth Tower.
So I think Elizabeth Tower is the actual tower, and then Big Ben's the bell, and then the clock face on the Elizabeth Tower is slightly smaller than the one on the Liver Building. That's the biggest clock face in the UK.
Yeah, I definitely didn't know about that at all. What is the Grand National?
So that is a massive horse racing event that takes place in Aintree, which is a very small town in Liverpool that no one really talks about unless it's to do with the Grand National. I always can't believe it's there. It's in this part of Liverpool because it's so, there's not really anything there, but there's this massive horse racing stadium that happens there, and it's very big all over Europe.
Yeah, I think I can relate to that because where I'm from in South Carolina, the state next to us is Georgia, which has Augusta, which is home to the Masters, which I'm sure y'all, I don't know, big on the golf. I'm not, but obviously the Masters is, called the biggest tournament in golf and whatnot. And that's held here. And again, a small little bitty town, but it's like the golf capital kind of. So I guess sort of like that. Yeah, I'm looking at this, because we have the Kentucky Derby and the Triple Crown and all this other kind of stuff. Well, I don't think we have Triple Crown, but I know we have Kentucky Derby. But it says the Grand National is watched by 600 million people worldwide, And I just look at that as, why are people watching a bunch of horses?
Exactly. There's been so many campaigns to stop it because a lot of people think it's cruel, and I think every year they put down at least one horse. Is that right?
I think more.
But they put down horses because they might like break their neck or something, or get injured whilst going over the jumps. I know they've made the jumps smaller, but some people think that's not enough, and a lot of people think it encourages like gambling and betting and antisocial behavior as well.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that. One other weird thing I came across, and this is apparently in South Liverpool, is the Calder Stones, if I'm pronouncing that right.
Yeah, I've not actually been, but I know that it's like a park, isn't it?
Yeah, they got it enclosed, and apparently it says the Calder Stones in South Liverpool are older than Stonehenge.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, I just learned about that today, and they were once formed a part of a chambered tomb in what is now in the area of Allerton, if I'm saying that, and they're in the Hart Hill greenhouses in Calder Stones Park.
Yeah, Allerton's the area that a lot of the Beatles hung out in, and did John Lennon grew up in kind of that area as well. That's where Penny Lane is in Allerton.
Okay. All right. Well, I think one thing we can get on to that I'm assuming you guys will definitely know a lot about is Liverpool is the most filmed British city outside of London. And you guys being movie people yourselves can probably talk a lot about that, because I'm looking at screenshots of Sherlock Holmes with Robert Downey, a Captain America film, The Dark Knight apparently has some shots over there, and even, of course, Harry Potter, I'm definitely sure. And I also seen that the new Batman that's currently in film with Robert Pattinson is shooting a scene or two somewhere over there. Is that something like, have y'all been around an area where, they had it closed off for filming stuff, and how'd that go?
Yeah, so I've been an extra in, I don't know if you've heard of Danny Boyle's film Yesterday that came out last year.
Is it called Yesterday?
Yeah, it was like a musical comedy, and it's about this guy who is a musician, and he's kind of like struggling, and then he's not really famous, and then he gets hit by a bus, and then he wakes up in a world where the Beatles never existed, and it's not set all in Liverpool, but there was quite a lot set like filmed in Liverpool, and yeah, so I was an extra in a scene that was filmed there. It's kind of like a Russian scene, so it wasn't even in Liverpool, but they did film around Liverpool, so he comes back to Liverpool to try and remember the songs because no one else can remember them. And you've worked on, or you've seen like other productions being filmed, haven't you?
Yeah, I worked on a musical called Perfectly Frank, which isn't out yet, but I was like a crew member on that. That was shot very locally. And
really?
yeah,
Cool.
So yeah, you just see it wouldn't be unusual to walk past the set. And the Robert Pattinson Batman film, they put out a call for extras. I was hoping to apply, and then the filming's been postponed now, so hopefully second time around.
I've got a friend who runs like a film walking tour in Liverpool, and it's called Real Tours. That's REEL, and he goes to all these places, and he's got all these really just bizarre stories that you wouldn't believe of him, like walking down the street and then Sean Bean gets out of a car, or like I think he's bumped into Hugh Grant and people like that as well in Liverpool, and it just shows you like how much Liverpool has had in the film industry. And even if it's not doubling up for itself, a lot of the time Liverpool will be like standing in for New York or Washington DC. So The Crown, they recently filmed a bit of it in Liverpool because it looks a bit like Washington. And Fantastic Beasts, they filmed a lot that was supposed to be New York as well. So it's a lot of these old buildings that are quite similar to the ones in America.
Yeah, that's definitely pretty interesting. Then, if being the pop capital of the world, cultural capital in 2008, so many films being done there that has been able to stay so authentic and charming, I guess you could say. It's not, I guess, I don't necessarily say a city can have an ego, but hey, we got all this stuff, let's grow and go. It still stayed how it's always been. That's a very cool thing to see, for sure.
Exactly. And like even some of the older buildings, like there was a street that was going to get knocked down in South Liverpool in a place called Toxteth. But then, have you heard of Peaky Blinders, the TV show?
Yes.
They wanted to film in those streets because they look like When's Peaky Blinders?
1910s.
1910s Birmingham. It looked a little bit like. So there's these really like old houses that they've managed to keep up because Peaky Blinders was filmed there, and I don't know. It's kind of the council were going to knock it down, but instead they've decided to renovate them and keep them up so people can go and visit. Which it kind of shows how a lot of people think that you need to get rid of the older buildings to progress, but it kind of shows that like we can still live with a lot of the past here as well.
Yeah, that's one thing. Me and I spoke to, like I said, the lady from Serbia just earlier today, and they have that as well. A lot of the civilizations and whatnot back then are still there, and they're made for tourist attractions now, but they're not getting torn down and replaced with condos and shopping malls like they do here in America. Then anytime something's getting old, they just tear it down and make something new, and it's good to see that other parts of the world aren't like that. They know that they have a rich history, and they like to keep it around to, I guess, remind them, where they came from and whatnot. So that's always a really interesting thing to see.
Absolutely.
Have you ever been like outside the country, outside the UK?
Yes.
Yeah.
Quite a few times.
And where have you ever been to America? Let me put it out. Have you ever been over here?
Yes, I've been to New York and like Orlando. Matt's been to
Orlando and Los Angeles.
Okay, so I'm assuming that was like for a vacation or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So since you've been over here a few times and experienced, obviously those are big major cities and big tourist spots. And again, I'm assuming the news every now and then will show again what's going on over here right now. What are some things that you see, what are some things that you like about America possibly that you would enjoy getting adopted maybe by, if not Liverpool, just UK in general, if there are any?
I think American people in general, I'm not saying everyone, are a lot more kind of happy, and they kind of make the most of like the small things. You walk into a shop and everyone's like, "Hi, have a nice day," and things like that you don't really get in the UK. And people just seem to like express themselves a lot more than they do here. A lot of the time, you kind of have to read people to see what they think. But like in the US, I think people are more open.
Yeah, I kind of like what John said, the kind of service orientated part of it. Like you go into a shop or a restaurant and there's just all these pleasantries, like they're so polite. Whereas if you go to a restaurant in the UK, it's usually like some teenager working there as a part-time job who really doesn't want to be there, and they're just kind of being rude to you. But like Americans just have, it seems to be like bigger personalities. The Americans are very like, I don't know, they're very distinct and vibrant, whereas a lot of British people are very quiet and boring and dull
Well, when I went to New York specifically, everything seemed to be every experience that we had, the people there tried to make it absolutely perfect. So when we went up the Empire State Building, everyone who worked there tried to make it so memorable.
Yeah.
And the Statue of Liberty tour, the tour guide was really great, and like everyone tried to make it like really memorable, but there's not so much that kind of tourism experience in the UK. I don't think a lot of our attractions are things that you can just kind of look out from the outside. I think
places you can go to, the like things you can see. It's like Big Ben. It's not a day out, is it?
Yeah. So what are some things then that during your time here that you're like, it caught you off guard and you didn't like? And don't worry, I'm not going to be offended.
Okay. So I think the big one for most British people is just the shock of going into a supermarket and seeing guns on the shelf.
Okay. Yeah.
Or like, because that's very, obviously we would expect to see a lot of guns in the US, but we wouldn't expect to see them in a supermarket where they're selling food or like kids' toys or things like that. So I think people are not prepared for how kind of ingrained in the culture it is. You'd expect them to be hidden away, but a lot of the time you might be walking and then see someone with a gun and say that, oh, he's got a gun. So in the UK, they're pretty much outlawed. It's pretty much, I wouldn't know how to get hold of one, but if you went into the US, I know it's a lot easier to get a license, and I know that's very much part of the culture there. It's just very different to how it is in the UK.
Yeah, and I guess it's very topical. Just to add to that, like the police are quite different as well. There's just a different aura around walking past an American cop to how it would be like a British policeman. Like a British policeman doesn't really do anything. He's just kind of there. He's kind of just there, and like has nothing really to do. But an American cop, it's like, oh no, what's happened now?
Yeah, I like that. I like that. That's kind of interesting. So you guys are making a movie right now, and John was in a movie yesterday, which I'm gonna have to look into that. You said, the guy woke up and the Beatles never existed. I like that concept.
Yes, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it sounds. I'm not crazy big into Beatles, but they do have a few good tracks that I do enjoy when it comes on. But just the concept of anything like that, where something that was big in whoever's time, and he goes back and it's never existed, and seeing how the world changed. That's a very unique concept, no matter how you spin it. So real quick before we go ahead and I guess if you have like a website or your own, you said you had your own podcast, go ahead and plug that, and I'll get with you guys afterwards, and I'll put the links in the description, all that kind of stuff. So go ahead and tell everybody, I guess, where they can find you.
Thank you. So I run a podcast called Art Imitates Life, and twice a week I upload an episode where I'm talking to a different creator. So it might be an artist, or it might be an actor or a musician, and we're just talking really about how their life has influenced their art, and vice versa, kind of how art has helped them see the world differently. And I kind of set it up as something to do during lockdown, but I'm just learning so much, and I've been invited to several places all over the world already, so I can't wait to I just found it. I'm sure you agree. Like it's a great it's a great way to kind of see the world and
for sure
connect with people all over the world, and people that you wouldn't have met with recently. So it's on Spotify, Anchor, and Google Podcasts, and it's called Art Imitates Life.
So yeah, we have an Instagram. I'd say that I will plug the Instagram page first for our films, because that's where we have by far the most followers. It's at Some Guys With A Camera, all one word. On Instagram. Then our YouTube channel is just Some Guys With A Camera, although you might need to type in Some Guys With A Camera Blackbird, which is one of our movies, and the movie will come up and you'll be able to find our channel. Same with our Facebook, it's just Some Guys With A Camera, and yes, that's it. But mainly the Instagram. The others, the YouTube's where you find our films, so do remember the YouTube.
Definitely. And John, I'll agree there and tag on a little bit, because I think I started this podcast a little bit before our quarantine over here in the States, and I didn't even start it to really even talk to. I never thought of talking to people from halfway around the world. I don't remember even how that came about. But I was, hey, let's try this, and ever since I've been doing it, they've easily been some of my favorite episodes. I mean, because again, how else would somebody who can't really travel, because my family and whatnot are all around here, especially nowadays. Right now, you can't really fly anywhere. Talk to somebody literally on the other side on the planet in Australia, like I did yesterday, or here across the pond with you guys over in the UK, Serbia a few hours ago, and South America and all that kind of stuff from your own home. That's some cool ass shit. I don't care.
It's brilliant, isn't it? And I think a good thing about your podcast is it's called Red Rambles, isn't it? It's kind of it sounds like it's very open, and you can kind of just talk about what you want. You don't have, you've not set you down to talk about one specific thing. So if you find someone that you want to talk to, you can talk to them on the show. That's one of the great things about making something with such a wide variety of potential topics. I think it's just a lot more fun.
Yeah, you're just going with the flow. I'll research a few things and we'll bring it up, go back and forth, and every single time I've learned something, or even I've brought up something that the other person didn't know about their own area. It's been really, really cool. It's definitely one of the best things I've ever done, for sure. I
feel the same about my show as well.
Well, I'll get with you guys, and I'll get the Instagram, your YouTube, all that kind of stuff. Hopefully you guys can get some more listeners, subscribers, all that kind of good shit. And definitely whenever your video drops, let me know, and I'll be sure to watch it.
Thanks so much, Jamie. I can't wait to catch up with the rest of your episodes.
Thank you very much for having us.
All right, man. You guys have a good time over there. I'll see you later.
You too.